Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're studying the resurrection of Jesus, and we're in Matthew's Gospel. We're going to finish up Matthew's account today. We're in Matthew chapter 28. We're reading verses 16 through 20. So, Matthew doesn't give the large, expansive um, account of the panorama of Jesus' appearances, like Paul introduces in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. He really boils it down to um, the concerns that he has for his gospel that's given to his readers with a Jewish background. He details quite clearly the plot of the high priests and the Sanhedrin to discredit the resurrection of Jesus, and also that Jesus raised from the dead, that he appeared first to the women, and that he instructed his disciples to go into Galilee. And so instead of talking about everything else, he deals with that one incident, although there may be allusions to others in these short verses. These are verses we know so well, particularly verses 18 through 20. When the 11 disciples proceeded to Galilee, to the mountain which Jesus had designated, and when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some were doubtful. And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. So this happens in Galilee. The commission is given, but this is not necessarily the moment of ascension. And it seems that ascension happened, at least according to Luke's account in Luke and Acts, um, from the Mount of Olives. Uh, um, we'll talk about that more when we get there. But this account has them meeting Jesus in Galilee to receive this commission. And which mountain? We don't know. Mount Carmel, perhaps. We don't know where, but he's not in Judea. He's in Galilee when he meets them. Um, and when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some were doubtful. They're at some distance because Jesus comes up. So what happened in verse 18? So what happens in verse 17 happens while they are still some distance away from Jesus. They can see Jesus, but they're some distance away because Jesus comes up. So they stop evidently in their tracks and they worship. And then he says some doubted. And that's curious. That word doubt means to doubt. I mean, there's no way around it. Um, and so some commentators have thought this a reference to Thomas and just the general doubt that Thomas had, and that maybe others may have had, not necessarily in this moment, but just general doubts they had during this period. And some think they were doubting themselves, their worthiness, as Peter does in Luke chapter 5. Get away from me, I'm a sinful man. That they were not worthy to be in his presence and they were doubting themselves. I don't know. It's just there for us to ponder and to think about. And then Jesus says, All authority has been given me in heaven and on earth. That is a more curious phrase than we admit to ourselves, because we know that God is one and Jesus is God. And therefore, since Jesus is God and God is one, Jesus, as God, already has all power and authority. And yet, there's a sense in which Jesus has been permanently changed. He is no less God at all. But both Paul and John agree that Jesus is now existing in bodily form, as will we in resurrection, which we'll learn that when we get to 1 Corinthians 15. And so Jesus isn't just He wasn't just fully human and fully divine in his past. He continues to be fully human and fully divine. And that wasn't true until the incarnation. And so there is a change. I don't want to say an alteration because he's no less God than he ever was. But, you know, apart from that fact, this is an almost unexplainable comment. And then he says, go. They're receiving this commission. And there are several verbs, but the primary verb is to make disciples. The process is to make disciples. And that starts with baptizing people in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In case we were wondering whether the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are not God as one together, Jesus reiterates it with that phrase, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But that's not all there is. There's teaching them to observe all things. And then Jesus promises us his presence to the end of the age being the new age he has inaugurated, the age that we are in, which is the last age of the existence of the universe. Jesus is with us for the whole journey. We have no ascension in Matthew's gospel. That in itself is a bit of a curiosity, but his was probably not the first gospel written, although some see Matthean primacy. I doubt it. And in the preaching that has already taken place for decades, and in Mark's gospel at least, we already have other information than we have from him. He's tailoring the information that he uses for his audience. Well, thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. Next time we're together, we'll pick up with Mark's account.